Sa nama je Dolores iz Austrije, poznata kao Šiska, i ona će da vam priča nešto o cosplay hackingu. So, hello Šiska, welcome to Japanizam. How do you like it so far?
Hello. Yeah, I really like it so far, so thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you to all of you who are listening to me now, and also for being so friendly and welcoming here in Serbia.
No problem. So, may you start your panel now?
Alright. So my cosplay name is Šiska, my real name is Doris, and most people actually call me Dodo. What I'm going to talk about today is some tricks I'm doing when I'm approaching my cosplays, and how I am starting out when I choose a new costume. So those are a few examples to show you what I love to do in my leisure time.
As we can see, your costume is here, this one.
Yeah, exactly. It is Rakamar, it's a shaman from Magic the Gathering. But yeah, as we all know, we didn't start with awesome costumes most likely, and one of the projects I did was together with a group of game programmers, and we made promotional armor for their video. Yeah, we all start with fun things like this, I think. Alright. So, there are going to be many pictures in this presentation that are actually not beautiful and impressive, I think, but I think they could be useful for you. So about me, I am actually studying digital arts. So I approach cosplay from a very design-heavy point of view. I'm doing a lot of character design and environment design, and so you might find out later I'm approaching crafting very visually. Now I also do my own designs, such as this interpretation of the suisun, or however you call it in Serbia, the Pokemon. I sadly never got to do the cosplay myself. Well, how did I actually get to cosplay? So I started out...
You want to change this out?
I started out with collectibles like the little Nendoroids and Figma action figures. And I started doing my own ones, like the one on the left. And I also started doing modding of Figmas, like the example you can see on the right. So I was very much into collectible stages at that time. And this is inside Black Rock Shooter, and the statue of her was fascinating me when it came out, but it was so expensive. It was like €200, I guess. And I just did not have the money. But then an idea came to my mind that I wanted a statue, but I didn't want it in a scale of 1:8. I wanted life-sized, and I wanted to put it on. So I didn't approach it from the aspect, I want to wear a cosplay to a convention. I just wanted to have this armor at home. And as everybody, we had stuff around in our house, and I built this cosplay. And they built it from cardboard, like the free cardboard boxes you get at the supermarket. From toothpicks, around 2,000 of them, tape and paint. So I still love to work with cardboard. During working on the Insane Black Rock Shooter armor, I found one of my absolute favorite materials. And it is brown cardboard. It is super sturdy, and if you prime it right, it can stand water and whatever. I'm still working very often with this. But there's one thing that bothered me when I finished it, because it worked. And I did not expect it, to be honest. So I was always asking myself, why did this actually work, and how can I make the next costumes work? Because I really caught fire on Insane Black Rock Shooter, and I wanted to do more cosplay. And I wanted to do more research into other techniques. So I was searching for a definition of cosplay for myself. And I asked myself questions, and I actually do not know how to define it, because for me, I'm approaching it very much for crafting, and I did not start cosplay to portray a character at the first time, but yeah. So for the crafting side, I would say it is a visual art for me. But when it comes to actually wearing a cosplay, I think it's more like a character portrait. So this leads me to what I want to focus on in this talk. So it's about make what you see and not what it is. Because I'm always like, I'm separating portraying the character and the personality from crafting the costume. Because I think crafting the costume is very much about what you see and not what it is, while the personality of a character is not what you see, but what it is and what it feels like. So yeah, it will mostly be about crafting, and let me explain what I want to say with this sentence. It's, I'm going to wear Adamene and Sydney from Witcher and Gwent tomorrow. And the reference I worked with is the next slide. So yeah, it seems simple at first. You see a yellow dress. But what I question myself is, how do I make the dress stay the best way on my body without falling off because of the huge, the very deep cleavage? And I said to myself, who tells me that it is a dress and not just a swimsuit and a skirt? And so in the end, I just made it like a Sailor Moon costume. I made a swimsuit like body, and I sewed the skirt on, and it fixed basically all my concerns I had about the dress falling off my body when I bend and turn or slipping around my waist. And this is what I'm going to talk about later for other projects, how I approached this.
Well, Shiska told us that if you wish to ask anything during the panel, you can ask. So if you have any questions about this now, here's a question.
Do you use cosplays sometimes as a part of your everyday outfit? Is something like lighter?
No, I don't. I sometimes do sew clothes for wearing during the day, but I don't have much costumes I can wear every day. Actually, none.
Do you like keep all your cosplays in one place? Do you make it? Yes.
No, so far I have kept all of them. I have like 12 now, I think. And I'm very lucky because my parents have a house and a big cellar, and it's pretty empty. It has been pretty empty, and then I have one room where I can store all my cosplays, because some, especially the armor cosplays, take a lot of space. Yeah.
Some more questions, maybe? I guess we'll go next slide.
So, I want to tell you a bit about my workflow when I start a new costume. It's not always like this, but it is ideally like this. So I start out with research. I'm going to talk here about Scar from The Lion King. I sadly did not have time to realize this project so far, but I have quite a lot of pictures to show you from how I researched. So when I start with a character, I do an analyzation, and I focus very much on finding the basic shapes of a character. So here is Alex Cesra, and these are not the original artworks, they are from Zach Fisher, who did redesigns. And most characters, especially if they are Blizzard characters, you can just break them down into 2 to 3 colors and 2 to 3 shapes. So I extracted these shapes here. But how do you use it then? You have these shapes, and you really need them if you want to complete the costume. Like if you have an illustration like this, it's an awesome illustration, but it's just from the front. So having these shapes is a really easy tool to just complete any costume from any perspective. You just repeat it. And then I'm going deeper into research of how I want the costume to look like, how do I want to approach the style and the techniques. And these are some designs I came up with. And you can see, especially on the right one, it is a very stylized proportion, and this brings me to my next big point, because it is, how does this work on my body? How does this work on me? How can I ever make this stick to myself? And I usually go with a photo of myself. And then I go on with putting some references next to it and drawing the silhouette of my body. So when you have a design, it's mostly very stylized and it might not be your body type. So I think it's very helpful to just be honest and draw over one of your photos to see how it might look on you, to see the proportions it might have. Yeah?
Do you think anyone can pull up any cosplay, or some people like, there are some that cosplays are specific thing that one person may be good at, like wearing them, and depending on the body types? If you understand me.
Yeah, I do. I think if you do preparations and research, I think you can do anything you would like. I mostly do these steps to see if I like it on myself without doing it actually.
I like some cosplays that not everyone can be good at, some that are meant for a certain, I mean, they probably are. How often do you have to be a specific motif or something, or they just come along the way?
Body type.
No, I'm just mostly choosing things because I like the design itself. I'm not looking at it like, it could look good on me, or it could look like I look anyway. So I like the style of the artwork, or I like the character itself, like its personality, and I don't care if I can reach the proportions or not, because I'm a huge fan of very stylized characters. I can never reach it, it does not matter, I think. Yeah, and when I try to be very honest, like not enlarging my legs, etc. So I take like this picture when I was just standing around, and then I draw the design over it. It is a bit older. It's not the same design as you saw before, but it does the job to show you what I mean. You don't have to do it digitally. I mean, I work very much in Photoshop and Clip Studio, but you can just take a sheet of paper, go to the window, trace it through, it's just enough. And usually before I start a bigger costume with many parts, I put it into layers, so I can separate the pieces, and I handle each piece as has a separate color here as one. So I can say, alright, I finished this one or that one. Mostly I already split it into parts I know I can transport, so I split it into parts that fit my suitcase most of the time.
That's actually really smart.
So, yeah, and then I usually also, on the very right, I already think about how I'm going to fix it to my body, because when you think about it very early, you can hide the buckles of the zippers underneath fabric or other armor pieces. And you can also think about it if you can transport it, or if you need more buckles to make it more separate pieces, for example. Yeah, here come the really more embarrassing photos. So if you switch back and forth between these, I'm doing sometimes tests of characters. Like I just put on normal clothes or pieces of fabric to test out if I like a character on myself. And I can really recommend you, especially if you already have some fabrics at home, just try it out and see if it feels good on you, if you like it, because it saves you so much time instead of making a costume you don't like in the end. So
that's actually really smart.
That is a very quick introduction to what I would call the pre-production of a costume. And the next part will be actual crafting tips and examples I did for my costume. So if you have any questions for sketching, etc.
There it is. Wait for the microphone.
It's not specifically for the editing, but I want to ask, like, for the materials, you mentioned the report. For example, I don't have money to buy board, so do you think it's fine to use cheaper materials? Because, for example, I'm not skilled as you are, so do you think you need a bit of a, like, less skills, is it still possible for cheaper materials to look good?
I actually also started with cardboard because I did not want to afford water. So, and I still actually build most of my stuff out of foam and cardboard. I still use cardboard. I think it's very beginner friendly because most of you have already done paper crafting and cardboard crafting at school. The thing is, you need a bit more of geometric understanding to work with cardboard because it's not as forgiving and stretchy. But otherwise, it's really cheap, it's really sturdy, so I can only recommend you to test out cheaper materials. Because I think Warbler is a bit overrated for big costumes. I think Warbler is really great for small details and small armor pieces, like gloves or something. And I really love to work with it for those things. But for big armor pieces, especially very simple ones, I can only recommend using foam or cardboard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you call cosplaying an expensive hobby?
It depends on how many costumes you make.
Yeah, and I think on which costume you make, then it depends. Because one can be like 10 or $15 if you go to the store and just buy something, or it's going to be like 3,000, 2,000, 6,000.
So I'm also just wearing this, and I made most of Rakamar from scraps I had at home. It's leftovers from other costumes, and it was like €30. And then I have this blue Monster Hunter armor that cost me nearly 200. So I think it's also very depending on how much time you take, because if you calculate how much gaming costs, for example, per minute you do it, it's pretty similar to cosplay because it most of the time takes a lot of time.
Any more questions or? Just a second, he's trying to remember the question. Doesn't matter, he'll ask later. This is the costume you're wearing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm bringing some cosplays up as examples. You have a question now?
Can you showcase your cosplay when you are not like in a convention? So where do you use it? You just like put them on, take pictures and put them on.
I usually don't do much photo shootings aside from conventions, so I really just wear it to conventions, and especially in Austria we have a community that is very much focused on doing photo shoots at conventions. So I write to photographers before a convention, hey, you want to meet up? I've so far just done 2 actual photo shootings where I really put on everything just for making photos. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's fine. I was wondering if there are any alternatives to sketching by hand or on computer. You know, like designing yourself in a Sims game, and that should be done. For those of us who are artists with talent.
If you don't like drawing, I would actually rather search for references and do something like photo bashing, just roughly cutting out pieces and putting it together. Or like scrapbooking if you want to work on paper.
Tracing everything is maybe an option.
Yeah, or you go for something a very open universe, like where you can modify your character very much, such games as Monster Hunter and World of Warcraft that have many possibilities to style your character, also Skyrim with all its mods, maybe. Yeah. So I might continue with some progress pictures of Rakamar. So when you look at maybe the reference again, the upper.
Wait, what this?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You can, for example, see that the head, these jaws on the head are bound to it with some kind of strings. But the thing was, I knew that this was going to be for my suitcase. So I knew my suitcase, I measured it, and I built this costume exactly for a suitcase. So what I did, I decided to just make it detachable by magnets. So I have 3 magnets here, and I have 3 magnets in here. And it made it very easy to transport it, and yeah, it's very easy to pack. Alright, and the next thing was, you can see it's a really small helmet, and it does not stick too well. So I decided to just have this clip in here. You know these from backpacks, etc. And it just does the job. It keeps it to the wig, and the wig is fitting very well. So you can, if you want, and just give it around if you want to have a closer look.
It's attached again, so people will be attached. Come here. Take it. This, that. Duster.
Thank you. And this is, for example, made from cardboard, and I attached some PU foam on the cardboard and covered it in painter's tape. So it is made from so-called pool noodles. Maybe you know them?
Oh my god, pool noodles, yeah, those are the things from foam that are really like long.
And you use them for swimming, and you can put them together with those rings. So yeah, the helmet is cardboard and carved pool noodles. And yeah, I built it for my suitcase, so I knew how long the stuff can be, and I knew I'm going to have to assemble and disassemble it at the convention. So I used cardboard rolls, and I just took a Coke bottle, cut off the cap, and glued it in to make a screw out of it. That's the next.
This thing is actually very common in cosplay. When everybody has like a long stick, that's the only thing people actually think of doing is like reattaching the stick. But the whole costume to be separated is quite amazing, because I think everybody just, for these things, people saw it. I didn't see a helmet that's coming off.
Yeah, I have some other examples later I can talk about.
That would be
built most of
amazing.
my costumes for my biggest suitcase. It's a 120-liter Samsonite monster that most cosplayers have if they're doing armor cosplay. So I know the measurements, and I built everything to fit in there. Alright, so the next thing was making the stuff out of wood. So I did not want to make it from real wood because it's forbidden at some German conventions to bring wooden sticks. And it's really difficult to make the screw into wood. So what I did is, it is cardboard rolls, and I covered it in painter's tape. And all I did was I put folds into painter's tape. And the good thing is you can control the detail if you want tiny folds or deep folds. And then I just painted it with acrylics.
Wait a second. It's forbidden to bring sticks to a convention.
Yeah, the German weapon rules are way more strict at some conventions. I have friends who got their weapons taken away, which were spoons, long spoons. Some German and also some Austrian conventions are really strict, and they have in the rules, for example, you may take cardboard weapons with you, but they do not apply if you put them properly, because cardboard weapons can be really dangerous if put properly. So I always get my weapons taken away when I go into a convention, and you can take it with you when you leave or when you go to the exterior, because many conventions at Austria have a beautiful exterior, so you're not going inside anyway.
Oh my god. This is the first time I hear that you can't bring a spoon in a convention. What you gonna do? Kill a person with spoon killer? I don't understand.
Some also forbid selfie sticks for the same reason, because you could kick somebody.
With the selfie stick, I understand that you can kick somebody, but with the spoon, what you gonna do with the spoon?
This big spoon for steering.
Oh.
It's still not really dangerous.
Yeah, it's still not very dangerous, but okay.
Unless you're going to a gym, it's not dangerous.
Yeah.
What about chopsticks? Free, perhaps.
They are mostly allowed because they also have sushi at most conventions.
Imagine that, you can kill a person with chopsticks, you can literally stab them, but you can't take a spoon.
Yeah, I don't know, the rules are sometimes, the rules seem very logical, but then they are applied in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah? For example, yeah, but you have to cut it open first, so that is the bigger problem, I guess.
Wonderful. Learning everything.
Forks and metal things in general are forbidden, so you also are not allowed to have a metal core. But the thing is, they're not going to cut your weapon open, so you can't sneak it in. Really? Alright.
We should continue. Enough with the spoons.
Yeah, so another thing were the tattoos of Rakamar, and I didn't want to paint it on each time, so I just bought some tights. I was very lucky to have a brand of tights that don't dissolve themselves when you cut into it. So I have these for a few years now, and they're not getting damaged, even not by the teeth I have on my costume. And I just put it on one of my pool noodles before I destroyed them. So I can have the fabric stretched, and then I paint it on with classic acrylic colors. And it saves a lot of time not doing it every time before the convention. It's also way too big to make it like the printable tattoo foils.
Yeah, it looks amazing with pictures, which is good.
Yeah, it's mostly just because I have those endings here.
What? It's a sleeve. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, the next project I want to talk about is the one that I guess I became somehow most known for, and it is the Blue Kutku Gunner from Monster Hunter 4. So I want to show you the reference pictures, and I think even the people rather sitting in the behind part are saying that you can count the pixels on it, because the only references I had were screenshots from the 3DS, and there were never done any renderings of the armor. But I really enjoyed it, because I could imagine so many details, and I could just do it my own way. So these are the first sketches I did to do the layout and sketch down the silhouette of the costume. And yeah. Then we come back to the tape stuff, because I did the whole blue armor this way. I made it from EVA foam, not cardboard, because I wanted it a bit thicker. And the problem is painter's tape that does not stick to crafting foam. But duct tape does stick to it. But paint does not stick to duct tape. So what I ended up doing is wrapping every armor piece in duct tape and then wrapping it again in painter's tape. Yeah, and this is how the process looked like.
Repeat the process again.
Yeah.
You did it once, now repeat it again on the other side. Now with the rest of the costume.
Yeah, it's a bit tedious, but in the end it did not take so long. And the painting was really easy, because if you have the structure on the surface, you can just use a sponge and go over it really, really roughly. So on the middle picture you can see a classic kitchen sponge lying around among the armor pieces. And it was super fast to paint and very, very fun, so I could paint the whole blue armor in way less than a day. The next big challenge for this costume was the bow, because I did this picture 1 year before with a friend who gave me her Monster Hunter bow, and this weighs 7 kilograms. And it is so hard to bring it up to aim. And I knew I'm just too weak to make a bow like this. So I had to do it in a different way. So, thank you. What I did, I used PU foam. So PU is what pool noodles are also made of. And it's very lightweight. It's like 1/10 of the weight you have on classic crafting foam. And it is not able to break. You can somehow tear it, but it's really hard to do. And I did a cardboard base. I put on the PU scales and I covered everything in tape again. And in the